Hello everyone. I'm the storyteller here to help you unwind. If you're enjoying this, don't forget to like and subscribe. It means a lot. Where are you watching from and what time is it there? Let me know in the comments. Now get cozy, close your eyes and let's begin. The night had a peculiar stillness, as though the world itself was holding its breath. Deep within the shadowed folds of the forgotten valley, an ancient forest stretched out like an eternal abyss, swallowing every trace of moonlight that dared to creep in. This place was not marked on any map, spoken of only in hushed whispers among the old villagers in nearby towns. The forest had a name long forgotten, a name erased from history but etched into the bones of those who had ventured too far and lived to tell the tale. It was simply known as the Whispering Grove. For centuries, tales of the Whispering Grove had been passed down through generations, each story more terrifying than the last. A cursed land, they said, where the trees spoke in voices not of this world. Those who entered the grove would hear their deepest fears whispered back at them, and if they lingered too long, they would never return. Yet, as all legends go, the truth had faded into myth, and only the brave or the foolish dared to test the boundaries of its lore. It was into this grove that an unlikely group now ventured. 7 strangers, each with their own reasons for being there, stood on the threshold of the forest, their faces lit by the cold glow of the crescent moon. They were an odd assortment: a journalist chasing a forgotten story, a historian seeking lost records, an amateur paranormal investigator with dreams of fame, a grieving mother searching for closure, and 3 friends drawn by the thrill of the unknown. Each carried secrets, burdens they dared not share, and yet, tonight, their paths converged in the shadow of the Whispering Grove. The wind howled through the towering trees, carrying with it a chorus of faint whispers that seemed to dance just beyond the edge of hearing. The journalist, Lila, tightened her grip on her flashlight. She had spent months researching the grove, poring over every scrap of information she could find, and now, standing before its gnarled entrance, she felt both exhilaration and dread. "Let's not waste time," she said, her voice firm but betraying a quiver of unease. "We all know why we're here. Let's get what we came for and get out before we regret it." The others nodded, some hesitantly, some with grim determination. Without another word, they stepped into the grove, the world behind them swallowed by darkness. The air inside was thick, oppressive, as though the forest itself resented their intrusion. The canopy above was so dense that not even the moonlight could pierce through, leaving their flashlights as the only beacons in the ink-black night. As they moved deeper, the forest seemed to come alive. The shadows twisted and shifted, taking shapes that disappeared the moment they were fully seen. The whispers grew louder, more distinct, yet still incomprehensible, like a language long forgotten but imbued with an undeniable malice. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if the ground beneath them was reluctant to let them pass. It was the paranormal investigator, Simon, who first noticed something was amiss. "Do you feel that?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. He paused, pointing his flashlight at the path behind them. "It's like we're being followed." The group turned as one, their flashlights slicing through the darkness. Nothing but trees, their twisted forms looming like ancient sentinels, met their gaze. Yet, the feeling Simon described was undeniable. A weight, an unseen presence, pressed against them, watching, waiting. The grieving mother, Sarah, clutched the pendant around her neck, a keepsake of her missing daughter, and muttered a quiet prayer. "It's just nerves," said Andrew, one of the friends, his tone more confident than his expression. "This place is playing tricks on us. Let's keep moving." But even as they pressed on, the sense of unease grew. The trees seemed to close in around them, the path winding in impossible directions. The whispers turned into faint voices, calling their names, coaxing them to turn back or worse, to go further. None of them wanted to admit it, but they were no longer sure if they were walking in circles or being led deeper into the grove by some unseen force. Hours passed, or perhaps it was only minutes. Time had lost all meaning in this forsaken place. The air grew colder, their breaths visible in the dim beams of their flashlights. It was then that they stumbled upon the first sign that their journey was more than they had bargained for. A tree, massive and ancient, stood at the center of a clearing. Its bark was carved with symbols, intricate and alien, glowing faintly with an eerie blue light. "What is this?" whispered Elena, the historian, as she approached the tree. Her trembling fingers traced the symbols, and she recoiled as a jolt of energy shot through her hand. It's not from any language I've ever seen." Before anyone could respond, the whispers rose to a deafening crescendo. The air vibrated with a low hum, and the ground beneath them began to tremble. A sudden gust of wind extinguished their flashlights, plunging them into total darkness. In the pitch-black void, the whispers formed words, clear and chilling. "Turn back," they said, 1,000 voices speaking as one. "Or face the truth you seek." Panic set in as the group fumbled to relight their flashlights. When the beams finally pierced the darkness again, the clearing was empty. The tree, the glowing symbols, everything had vanished, leaving behind only an unbroken expanse of trees. The group stood in stunned silence, their breaths ragged, their hearts pounding. Lila was the first to speak. "Did everyone see that? The tree, the symbols, where did it go?" No one had an answer, but the weight of the forest seemed to grow heavier with each passing moment. They realized that turning back was no longer an option. The grove had trapped them and snared them in its dark web, and the only way out was forward. Little did they know, the horrors they had encountered so far were only the beginning. The grove had secrets, terrible secrets, and it would not let them leave until every last one of them was uncovered. With no choice but to press on, the group steeled themselves, their footsteps echoing in the silence as they ventured deeper into the heart of the whispering grove. And though none of them would admit it aloud, each carried the gnawing fear that they might never see the outside world again. Deeper into the abyss, the group pressed forward, their flashlights slicing through the oppressive darkness like feeble swords. The air grew heavier, each breath a laborious task. The deeper they ventured into the whispering grove, the more the atmosphere seemed to change, as though they were leaving the world they knew behind and entering a realm that did not welcome them. It started subtly at first, a flicker in the corner of their eyes, a sound like footsteps trailing just out of sync with their own. Sarah, clutching her pendant, began to mutter under her breath, her whispers blending with the grove's eerie chorus. Simon, the paranormal investigator, clicked on his recording device, determined to capture every anomaly, though his trembling hands betrayed his bravado. "We need to document this," Simon said, his voice barely steady. "Whatever's happening here, it's not just folklore. This is something else." Andrew scoffed but kept his eyes forward. "Something else? Yeah, it's called paranoia. Let's keep moving." But the grove would not let them move easily. The ground beneath their feet seemed to shift, the roots of ancient trees curling and uncurling as though alive. The whispers grew louder, forming fragments of sentences and voices that sounded painfully familiar. Lila froze when she heard her late father's voice calling her name. Sarah's grip on her pendant tightened as she swore she could hear her missing daughter's laughter echoing through the trees. "It's trying to break us," Elena said, her voice trembling but resolute. The historian had studied enough cursed sites to recognize the signs. "We have to stay together no matter what we hear or see. It's feeding on our fears." As if in response, the grove unleashed a new horror. The path ahead split into three, each route identical and equally uninviting. The group hesitated, the decision weighing heavily on them. The whispers seemed to mock their indecision, each path calling out to a different member of the group with promises of answers, salvation, or doom. "We stick together," Lila said firmly, her voice cutting through the cacophony. "No matter what, we don't split up." But the grove had other plans. A sudden gust of wind, cold and violent, swept through the clearing, extinguishing their flashlights once more. In the darkness, chaos erupted. Voices screamed, hands grasped for one another, but the grove twisted the space around them. When the lights flickered back on, they found themselves separated, each standing at the entrance of a different path. Panic set in as they realized the grove had scattered them. Each person was now alone, the others' voices faint and distant, as though coming from another world. The paths ahead loomed, dark and foreboding, and the grove whispered promises tailored to each of them. The only way forward was to face their fears, but none of them could know the price they would pay. Trials of the mind. The grove had transformed into a living labyrinth, bending its surroundings to disorient and isolate the group. Each of them, now on their individual paths, began to feel the sinister grip of the forest tightening around their minds. For Lila, her flashlight flickered erratically, plunging her into bouts of near darkness. The whispers became clearer, mocking her journalistic curiosity with phrases she'd once written in forgotten notebooks. "What lengths would you go to uncover the truth?" the whispers asked. She began to see faint images of herself, trapped and terrified, as if the grove were projecting her potential fate. Simon walked cautiously, his recording device capturing unnatural static and faint sobs. He saw a movement in the corner of his vision but couldn't bring himself to turn and face it. Instead, he pressed forward, though his own voice began to emerge from the whispers. "Is this worth the fame you've been chasing?" When he tried to respond aloud, his voice sounded foreign, distorted, as though the grove were playing it back to him. Sarah's path was the cruelest of all. The grove knew her pain and exploited it mercilessly. She saw her daughter, or something that wore her daughter's face, emerging from the shadows, beckoning her forward. "Mommy," the figure called, its voice warped and hollow. Sarah's heart raced as she stumbled after the apparition, unable to resist even as her rational mind screamed for her to stop. The three friends, Andrew, Mark, and Beth, were similarly scattered, each encountering personalized visions that preyed on their insecurities and past mistakes. Andrew's bravado crumbled as he faced shadowy figures accusing him of betrayals he'd buried deep in his conscience. Mark heard the laughter of friends long gone, mocking his failures, while Beth's surroundings morphed into scenes of accidents she'd blamed herself for, the guilt suffocating her. Elena's path was perhaps the most enigmatic. The historian found herself in a clearing surrounded by ancient stones inscribed with symbols similar to the ones they'd seen earlier. Her academic curiosity overpowered her fear, and she began tracing the symbols with her fingers. As she did, the whispers subsided, replaced by an overwhelming sense of dread. The symbols began to glow, and she realized too late that her touch had activated something she couldn't comprehend. The grove's ultimate intention was becoming clear: to unravel their minds and consume them one by one. Each of them faced not only external horrors but also the darkest corners of their own psyche. And as the forest closed in, they realized that their survival depended on more than just finding their way out. It required confronting the truths they had long avoided. Convergence of dread. The grove's hunger grew insatiable as it wove the individual paths of the scattered group closer to its heart. Unbeknownst to each traveler, their fragmented journeys were part of an intricate web designed to bring them together, not in unity but in confrontation. The forest's whispers began to shift, their individual torment evolving into a shared cacophony that resonated deep within each of them. Lila stumbled into a clearing where the ground pulsed faintly, glowing with a dim, otherworldly light. Her flashlight flickered weakly as she saw remnants of old campfires, torn clothing, and notebooks abandoned by those who had come before. Her journalist's instinct compelled her to examine them, but the words on the pages twisted and morphed into taunts directed at her own failures. Her breath caught as she heard faint footsteps approaching from the darkness. Simon's path led him to a series of mirrors scattered unnaturally among the trees. Each mirror reflected not his current self, but distorted versions of his past. One showed him triumphantly presenting fabricated evidence to a skeptical audience. Another revealed the void of his life outside his work. "You wanted proof," the whispers echoed. "But you never sought the truth." Sarah found herself in a place where the trees bent low, forming an almost cathedral-like space. At its center, a figure resembling her daughter sat quietly, playing with a doll. The sight brought tears to her eyes, but as she stepped closer, the figure's laughter grew distorted, and its shadow began to stretch unnaturally across the clearing. "What do you want from me?" Sarah sobbed, but the forest offered no answers, only more pain. The three friends, though separated, began to hear each other's voices faintly through the whispers. Andrew's bravado cracked further as he called out for Mark and Beth, only to hear their cries of fear and regret echoing back to him. Mark, lost in his own guilt, began to see visions of Beth accusing him of betrayals that never occurred. Beth's path led her to an old swing set that creaked eerily, each creak matching the thudding of her heartbeat. Elena's path converged with an ancient altar, its surface etched with glowing symbols. Her touch had activated a latent energy that began to ripple through the grove, pulling each of the others closer to her location. She felt a pull toward the altar, not of her own volition, but as though the grove demanded her presence. Her historian's mind raced, trying to decipher the symbols as the whispers crescendoed into a deafening roar. One by one, the group found themselves drawn to the altar, their individual torment giving way to a collective sense of foreboding. The grove no longer sought to separate them. It had decided that the time had come for the truth to be revealed. The altar's glow intensified, casting long shadows across the clearing as each person arrived, their faces pale and etched with fear. "Why us?" Lila asked, her voice barely audible over the hum of the grove. The altar's glow pulsated in response, and the whispers coalesced into a single voice, ancient and resonant. "Because you are the chosen ones. You sought the truth, and the truth demands a price." As the voice spoke, the ground beneath them began to shift, and the shadows surrounding the clearing came alive, taking the form of those they had lost, betrayed, or feared. Each person was confronted with the culmination of their nightmares, the forest's ultimate test. But this time they were not alone. Their survival would depend not on their individual strength, but on their ability to confront their pasts and work together. The grove had brought them here to break them, but within the horror lay a chance for redemption, if they could find it. The heart of the grove. The altar pulsed with an unnatural energy, its glow illuminating the terrified faces of the group as they stood in the clearing, surrounded by the living shadows of their pasts. The grove's whispers had ceased, replaced by a heavy silence that seemed to vibrate with anticipation. The voice that had spoken earlier now echoed in their minds, resonating with a depth that seemed to shake their very souls. "You stand at the precipice," the voice said. "The truth lies within, but it will demand your courage. Each of you must confront what you fear most. Only then will you be free." Lila, the journalist, was the first to step forward. Her flashlight trembled in her hand, but her resolve was clear. "If this is the only way out," she said, her voice wavering but determined, "then I'll face it." As soon as she spoke, the shadows around her coalesced into a figure, her father. He stood exactly as she remembered him, with the same weary eyes and stooped shoulders. But his gaze was hollow, and his voice, when he spoke, was laced with accusation. "You left me to die alone," he said, his voice cutting through her like a knife. "You cared more about your stories than your own family." Lila's breath caught in her throat. The guilt she had buried for years surged to the surface. I didn't know how to help you," she whispered. I thought I could make you proud by finding the truth." The figure stepped closer, its hollow eyes boring into hers. "Then prove it," it said. "Show me that your truth matters." Tears streaming down her face, Lila raised her flashlight and stepped into the shadow. For a moment she felt as though she were being swallowed whole. The air around her grew cold, and she could hear her father's voice echoing in her ears, repeating every doubt and fear she had ever felt. But then a warmth began to grow within her. She clung to the memory of her father's smile, the pride in his eyes when she published her first story. The shadows began to dissipate, and she emerged on the other side of the altar, trembling but whole. One by one, the others were called to face their own trials. Simon was next, and his torment was no less severe. The shadows formed into a version of himself, distorted and monstrous, holding a microphone in one hand and a camera in the other. "You're a fraud," the shadow sneered. "You've built your career on lies and fabrications. You've never cared about the truth, only the fame." Simon's knees buckled as the words hit him like a physical blow. He had always prided himself on his work, but deep down, he knew the shadow was right. He had bent the truth more times than he cared to admit, all in the name of a good story. "I can't change the past," Simon said, his voice barely audible. "But I can start telling the truth now." The shadow laughed, a sound that echoed through the clearing. "Then prove it," it said. "Speak the truth no matter the cost." Simon stepped forward, his heart pounding. The shadow loomed over him, but he didn't falter. "I've lied," he admitted. "I've manipulated the truth. But I won't do it anymore. From now on, I'll let the truth speak for itself." As he spoke, the shadow began to dissolve, its laughter fading into the night. Simon emerged from the trial, his face pale but resolute. Sarah's trial was the most heart-wrenching. The shadow of her daughter appeared before her, its form flickering and unstable. "Mommy," it said, its voice twisted and hollow. "Why didn't you save me?" Sarah fell to her knees, clutching the pendant around her neck. "I tried," she sobbed. "I did everything I could." The shadow reached out, its hand passing through her cheek like a cold wind. "You could have done more," it said. "You could have been there." "I know," Sarah whispered, "and I'll carry that guilt for the rest of my life. But I won't let it destroy me. I have to let you go." The shadow paused, its form flickering. "Let me go," it echoed, its voice softening. Then, slowly, it began to fade. Sarah stood, her tears falling freely, and stepped through the shadow, emerging on the other side with a weight lifted from her heart. The three friends faced their trials together. The shadows taunted them with their failures and betrayals, but they stood united, their bond unbroken. "We're stronger together," Andrew said, his voice firm. "We won't let this place tear us apart." Together, they stepped into the shadows, their unity shielding them from the grove's malice. They emerged on the other side, their friendship stronger than ever. Elena was the last to face her trial. The shadows formed into a figure draped in ancient robes, its face obscured by a hood. "You seek knowledge," it said, its voice resonant and powerful. "But knowledge has a price. Are you willing to pay it?" Elena hesitated. She had always valued knowledge above all else, but the figure's words filled her with dread. "What is the price?" she asked. The figure extended a hand, and images flooded her mind, visions of her discoveries being used for harm, of ancient secrets unleashing chaos upon the world. "The price is responsibility," it said. "Will you bear it?" Elena's heart raced as she considered the weight of the figure's words. "I will," she said finally. "I will bear it, and I will use it wisely." The figure nodded, and the shadows began to recede. Elena stepped forward, her resolve unshaken. When the trials were over, the group stood together once more, their faces etched with exhaustion but also determination. The altar's glow began to fade, and the voice spoke one final time. "You have faced the truth," it said, "and you have been found worthy. Go now and carry the lessons of the grove with you." The forest began to shift, the oppressive darkness giving way to the faint light of dawn. The group made their way out of the grove, their steps heavy but their spirits lighter. They had faced their fears and emerged stronger, bound by an experience that would forever change them. As they reached the edge of the forest, they turned back one last time. The grove stood silent and still, its secrets once again hidden from the world. But the group knew that the forest would always be there, waiting for the next souls brave enough to seek the truth. The grove's final gift. As the group stood at the edge of the forest, the grove seemed to exhale, a deep and ancient sound that rippled through the air like a final goodbye. They had survived, but the weight of what they had endured lingered in their hearts. The first rays of dawn pierced through the trees, casting long shadows across the ground and marking the end of their harrowing journey. But as they prepared to leave, a new presence emerged, not malevolent but curious. The grove wasn't finished with them yet. The air grew still, and in the silence, the faint sound of rustling leaves formed into words. "One last truth remains," the voice said, softer now, almost gentle. "Will you accept the grove's gift?" The group exchanged wary glances. After everything they had faced, the idea of one more challenge was almost too much to bear. Yet something about the voice had changed. It no longer carried the biting malice or oppressive weight of the grove's earlier tests. Instead, it was imbued with a quiet promise. Lila, ever the seeker of knowledge, stepped forward. "What is this gift?" she asked, her voice steady despite the trepidation that gnawed at her. The voice didn't answer directly. Instead, the ground before the altar began to shift, roots curling and twisting to form a small, glowing orb. Its light was warm and inviting, pulsating with a rhythm that felt almost alive. The orb floated into the air, hovering between them. "It is a fragment of the grove's memory," the voice explained. "A piece of its truth to carry with you into the world. But beware, truth is a double-edged blade." The group stared at the orb, its golden light reflecting in their weary eyes. After all they had endured, the idea of taking something from the grove seemed both an honor and a burden. "Should we take it?" Sarah asked, her voice filled with uncertainty. Elena, the historian, stepped closer, her fingers itching to reach out and touch the orb. "This could be a once-in-a-lifetime discovery," she said. "But the grove's warning isn't to be ignored." Simon nodded. "Every truth comes with consequences. But maybe it's worth it." They debated for what felt like hours, the grove's silence pressing down on them as they considered their decision. Finally, it was Andrew who broke the stalemate. "We came here looking for answers," he said. "And we found them, or at least we found pieces of them. If this is the grove's final lesson, then I think we should accept it. Together." The others nodded in agreement. Tentatively, they reached out as one, their hands brushing against the orb. As soon as they made contact, a surge of energy coursed through them. The world around them dissolved into light, and for a moment they were weightless, suspended in a vast, timeless void. Images flooded their minds, visions of the grove's ancient history, of the countless souls who had walked its paths before them. They saw the grove as it once was, a place of beauty and harmony, untouched by the darkness that now consumed it. They saw the moment it changed, the betrayal that had twisted it into the malevolent force they had encountered. And finally, they saw themselves not as individuals, but as part of an unbroken chain of seekers drawn to the grove by the same insatiable need for truth. When the light faded, they found themselves standing at the edge of the forest once more. The orb was gone, but its warmth lingered in their hearts. Each of them carried a piece of the grove's memory, a fragment of its truth that would stay with them forever. As they walked away, the world seemed different, brighter, sharper, more alive. They had faced their fears and emerged stronger, but the grove's lessons had changed them in ways they couldn't yet fully understand. They had been given a gift, but it was also a responsibility, a reminder that truth, no matter how painful, is always worth seeking. Months later, each of them found their own way to honor the grove's legacy. Lila wrote a series of articles that sparked a renewed interest in the forest and its mysteries, careful to balance fact with respect for its secrets. Simon began a new documentary project, one that prioritized authenticity over spectacle. Sarah found peace in her memories of her daughter, using her experience in the grove to help others who were grieving. Andrew, Mark, and Beth strengthened their bond, their friendship a testament to the power of unity in the face of fear. And Elena dedicated herself to studying the grove's history, determined to uncover its mysteries without awakening its darker side. The grove itself remained silent and watchful, waiting for the next group of seekers brave enough to face its trials. It was a place of pain and wonder, terror and enlightenment, a place where the line between truth and fear blurred until they became one and the same. And though its secrets would never be fully uncovered, those who ventured into its depths would always leave with a story to tell. For the group, the grove was no longer just a place. It was a part of them, a shadow that would follow them for the rest of their lives. But it was also a light, a reminder that even in the darkest of places, there is always the possibility of redemption. The new guardians. The grove had released them, but its memory clung to their souls. Each of them carried a piece of its essence, a fragment of its infinite history. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, yet the events in the grove echoed in their minds as vividly as if they had just stepped out of its shadow. The group's lives were changed in ways they could not have foreseen. The grove's gift was not merely the fragments of memory it had bestowed upon them, but also a deeper understanding of themselves and their world. Unbeknownst to them, the grove had chosen them for a purpose greater than any of them could have imagined. Lila's calling. Lila's articles about the grove gained widespread attention. Her words painted a vivid picture of its mysteries and horrors without revealing its exact location. Readers were captivated by her account of facing the unknown and emerging with a piece of truth. But with the praise came questions, and with questions came skeptics. Determined to protect the grove's secrets, Lila took a new approach. She began organizing gatherings for those who sought answers about the unexplained. She shared not just her experiences but also the stories of others who had encountered phenomena beyond comprehension. Her work inspired a movement of truth seekers who valued knowledge over fear. Yet, late at night, when the world was silent, Lila often felt the grove's presence. It was as if the trees whispered to her across the distance, reminding her of the bond they now shared. She knew she had a duty to ensure that those who ventured into the unknown did so with respect and caution. Simon's redemption. Simon's new documentary took him to places he had only dreamed of exploring. Unlike his previous work, this project was rooted in authenticity. He sought out the voices of indigenous communities, historians, and scientists to provide a holistic view of the world's mysteries. His journey eventually led him to a remote archive where he discovered ancient texts that spoke of groves like the one he had encountered. These writings described places where the veil between worlds was thin, where truth and fear intertwined. Simon realized that the grove was not unique. It was part of a larger tapestry of forgotten knowledge. As his work gained recognition, Simon used his platform to advocate for the preservation of these sacred spaces. He became a voice for responsible exploration, warning others of the consequences of disturbing what they did not understand. The grove's lessons guided him, and he felt its presence with every step he took. Sarah's healing. For Sarah, the grove's gift was both a burden and a blessing. She had faced the shadow of her daughter and emerged with a newfound understanding of her grief. The experience allowed her to help others who were struggling with loss. She became a counselor, working with families who had lost loved ones under mysterious circumstances. One evening, as she comforted a grieving mother, Sarah felt a warmth in her chest, a subtle reminder of the grove's gift. She spoke words she hadn't planned, but they resonated deeply with the woman before her. Sarah realized that the grove's memory lived within her, guiding her to bring solace to those in pain. Though she rarely spoke of her experience in the grove, Sarah found peace in knowing that her daughter's memory had not been lost. The pendant she wore seemed to glow faintly at times, as if her daughter's spirit was still with her. Sarah's connection to the grove became a source of strength, one she drew upon to help others find their way through the darkness. Andrew, Mark, and Beth's unity. The three friends returned to their lives with a bond that could not be broken. They often met to share their memories of the grove, finding solace in each other's company. The trials they had faced together had forged a connection deeper than friendship. It was a kinship rooted in survival and trust. Inspired by their experience, the trio decided to create a foundation dedicated to protecting unexplored wildernesses. They wanted to ensure that places like the grove remained untouched by greed and exploitation. Their work attracted like-minded individuals who shared their passion for preserving the unknown. On the anniversary of their escape from the grove, the three friends gathered in a secluded forest to honor their journey. As they sat around a fire, they felt a familiar presence in the air, a quiet acknowledgement from the grove. It was a reminder that their work was not just for themselves but for all who sought to protect the world's mysteries. Elena's quest for knowledge. Elena delved deeper into the history of the grove, piecing together the fragments of its memory. Her research led her to ancient manuscripts, forgotten legends, and archaeological sites that hinted at a larger network of sacred groves. She published her findings in a series of academic papers that sparked debates and discussions among scholars. But Elena's work was not without its challenges. She faced opposition from those who feared that her discoveries would attract the wrong kind of attention. Undeterred, she continued her quest, determined to honor the grove's legacy. One day, while studying an ancient map, Elena noticed a pattern she had overlooked. The groves were connected, forming a constellation that spanned continents. She realized that the grove's gift was not just its memory but a key to understanding a forgotten chapter of humanity's history. Elena knew her journey was far from over. The grove had entrusted her with its secrets, and she would dedicate her life to uncovering the truth. Yet, she also understood the grove's warning. Some truths were meant to be approached with reverence and care. The grove's legacy. Though the group had left the grove, it remained alive in their hearts and minds. The forest, silent and watchful, awaited its next visitors. It was a place of trials and revelations, where truth and fear intertwined. Those who entered its depths would face their darkest selves, but they would also discover the resilience of their spirits. The grove's final gift to the group was not just the fragments of its memory but the understanding that they were now its guardians. Each of them carried a piece of its essence, a reminder that the pursuit of truth was a journey without end. And so, the grove stood, a sentinel of the unknown, waiting for the brave souls who would one day walk its paths and seek its truths. The group's story was but one chapter in its endless history, a testament to the power of courage, unity, and the unyielding quest for knowledge. The eternal connection. As the years passed, the grove's influence continued to shape the lives of the group. Though they had moved on from the harrowing trials they faced together, the grove's lessons became an indelible part of who they were. Each member of the group carried their connection to the grove differently, their lives unfolding in ways that reflected the truths they had uncovered within its depths. Lila's legacy. Lila became an author of renown, her works delving into the unexplained and the mysterious. Her articles about the grove had sparked a movement, but her books solidified her status as one of the foremost chroniclers of the unknown. Her stories balanced careful research with a profound respect for the sacred nature of the places she wrote about. In one of her most celebrated books, Lila wrote of the grove's dual nature, its capacity to heal and harm, to reveal and conceal. The book, titled The Heart of Shadows, became a bestseller, and its proceeds went toward funding the preservation of sacred spaces around the world. Lila's work inspired countless readers to approach the unknown with both curiosity and caution. Yet, despite her public success, Lila's nights were often marked by dreams of the grove. In these dreams, she walked among its trees, hearing whispers of stories yet to be told. She felt a sense of peace in these visions, knowing that the grove trusted her to carry its truths into the world. Simon's exploration. Simon's documentaries gained critical acclaim for their depth and honesty. His work took him to remote corners of the world, where he uncovered stories of places that mirrored the grove, locations where the veil between worlds seemed to thin. Each new discovery brought him closer to understanding the interconnectedness of these sacred sites. One of Simon's most ambitious projects involved creating a digital archive of the world's unexplained phenomena. The archive included interviews, historical accounts, and personal testimonies, all meticulously documented to preserve the integrity of the stories. Simon's archive became a valuable resource for researchers and truth-seekers alike. Though he traveled extensively, Simon often returned to a secluded cabin near the grove's location. He felt a sense of renewal whenever he visited, as if the grove itself offered him strength for his next journey. Simon's connection to the grove was a quiet but constant presence, guiding him toward discoveries that bridged the gap between science and mystery. Sarah's mission. Sarah devoted her life to helping others navigate grief and loss. Her counseling practice expanded into a foundation that provided support for those dealing with unexplained disappearances and tragedies. Sarah's ability to connect with her clients on a deeply empathetic level made her a beacon of hope for many. One of the Foundation's most unique projects was the creation of memory gardens, spaces where families could honor their lost loved ones. These gardens were designed to evoke the serenity of the grove, with winding paths, ancient trees, and places for quiet reflection. Sarah's own garden included a small statue of her daughter, a reminder of the love that had guided her through her darkest moments. Though Sarah rarely spoke of the grove publicly, she often found herself drawn to its edges. On quiet evenings, she would sit beneath the trees and feel the presence of her daughter. The grove's gift had given her the strength to move forward, but it also served as a bridge to the past she held dear. Andrew, Mark, and Beth's endeavors. The trio's Foundation for Wilderness Preservation grew into an international organization. They worked tirelessly to protect untouched lands, advocating for the sanctity of nature in an increasingly industrialized world. Their experiences in the grove served as a powerful reminder of the fragility and resilience of these sacred spaces. Andrew became the public face of the organization, his charisma and passion drawing supporters from all walks of life. Mark focused on logistics, ensuring that the Foundation's projects were carried out with precision and care. Beth's artistic talents brought the beauty of the wilderness to life through photography and sculpture, inspiring others to see the value in protecting what remained of the natural world. On the Foundation's 10th anniversary, the trio unveiled their most ambitious project yet, a sanctuary modeled after the grove. This sanctuary, located in a remote forest, was designed to provide visitors with a sense of wonder and introspection. Though it lacked the grove's supernatural presence, it captured its spirit, offering a place for healing and reflection. Elena's discoveries. Elena's research into the grove's history took her across continents, uncovering connections between sacred groves, ancient civilizations, and forgotten myths. Her findings challenged conventional understandings of history, suggesting that these groves were part of a network that spanned the globe. One of Elena's most groundbreaking discoveries was an ancient codex that described the grove's role as a keeper of balance. The codex spoke of a time when humanity and nature existed in harmony, and the groves served as bridges between the two. Elena's work ignited a renewed interest in these forgotten places, sparking collaborations between historians, archaeologists, and environmentalists. Despite her scholarly achievements, Elena felt a personal connection to the grove that transcended her academic pursuits. On her journeys, she often carried a small token from the grove, a smooth stone etched with faint symbols, as a reminder of the truths she had uncovered. Elena knew that her work was far from finished, but she embraced the journey with a sense of purpose that only the grove could have instilled. The grove's watchful eyes. Though the group had moved on, the grove remained a sentinel of the unknown. It watched as new seekers approached its edges, drawn by whispers of its power and mystery. Some would turn back, unable to face the trials that awaited them. Others would step forward, their fates intertwined with the grove's endless story. The grove's final gift to the group was not just the fragments of its memory but the understanding that they were now part of something eternal. Their lives, shaped by the grove's trials and revelations, would ripple outward, touching countless others in ways they could not foresee. And so the grove stood, silent and watchful, its shadows stretching into infinity. It was a place of beginnings and endings, of truths and fears, of light and darkness. For those who dared to enter, it offered a chance to uncover the depths of their own souls and emerge forever changed. The group's chapter had closed, but the grove's story continued, its roots entwined with the fabric of the universe itself. For in the heart of the grove lay a truth that could never be extinguished, the eternal connection between the known and the unknown. The grove's new epoch. The years turned into decades, and while the original group moved further into their respective destinies, the grove began to call again. It was not the haunting, insistent whisper they had once endured. Rather, it was a hum of gentle longing that vibrated through the natural world, touching the hearts of a new generation. A legacy passed on. Lila, now in her twilight years, watched from the porch of her countryside home as the wind stirred the trees. Her legacy as an author and truth seeker had inspired countless others to explore the mysteries of the world. She had long since retired, but her name still resonated as a symbol of courage and curiosity. A knock at her door startled her from her reverie. It was a young journalist, eager and bright-eyed, holding a copy of The Heart of Shadows with dog-eared pages and highlighted passages. "Miss Thompson," the journalist said, her voice trembling with excitement, "I've read all your books, but this one changed my life. I have to know, is the grove real?" Lila's lips curved into a wistful smile. "The grove is as real as the truths you're willing to face," she replied. "But remember, it's not about finding it. It's about being ready when it finds you." The young journalist left with more questions than answers, but Lila's words would stay with her, guiding her on a path she didn't yet understand. A new generation of seekers. Simon's digital archive had become a hub for explorers, researchers, and storytellers. Among them was a young filmmaker named Aaron, who had stumbled upon the archive while researching a documentary. Intrigued by the references to the grove and other sacred sites, Aaron reached out to Simon for guidance. "If you're looking for answers," Simon said during their first video call, "you have to be prepared for what you might find. The grove doesn't just show you the truth. It makes you live it." Aaron's fascination only grew. With Simon's mentorship, he began piecing together clues about the grove's location. The more he learned, the more he felt an inexplicable pull toward it, as if the grove itself was calling him. The call of the grove. Sarah's foundation had expanded globally, offering solace and support to thousands. One day during a workshop, a participant shared a story that stopped Sarah in her tracks. It was a tale of a strange forest, a grove that whispered and tested those who entered. Sarah's heart raced as she listened. Though the details differed, she recognized the essence of the grove in the participant's account. After the session, she approached the young woman. "The place you're describing," Sarah said gently, "isn't just any forest. It's a place that changes you. If you're thinking of going back, you need to be certain you're ready." The young woman nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "I have to go back. There's something I left behind. A gathering of threads." Elena's research had unearthed new connections between the grove and similar sites across the globe. Her latest discovery was a series of ancient carvings that hinted at a convergence of seekers, a moment when those touched by the grove would be drawn together once more. The carvings described a cycle, a rhythm of time that brought the grove's chosen back to its heart. Intrigued, Elena reached out to the others, sharing her findings. One by one they responded, their curiosity and memories reignited. Andrew, Mark, and Beth, though busy with their sanctuary projects, felt the pull as well. They had always sensed that their work was connected to something larger, and Elena's revelations confirmed it. Return to the grove. The group reconvened at the grove's edge, joined by a new generation of seekers. Among them were Aaron, the young filmmaker, the journalist Lila had inspired, and the woman from Sarah's workshop. Each carried their own hopes, fears, and questions, ready to face whatever the grove had in store. As they stepped into the grove, the air shifted, and the familiar whispers began. But this time the grove's energy was different. It was not the oppressive weight of judgment but a welcoming embrace, as if the grove recognized its chosen and honored their return. The seekers formed a circle around the altar, which now glowed with a vibrant, golden light. The grove's voice spoke, resonant and clear. "You who have walked my paths, who have faced my truths, who carry my memory, you are the keepers of balance. The world shifts and the cycle begins anew. What will you leave behind for those who follow? The group exchanged glances, their hearts pounding with a mixture of awe and responsibility. They knew this was not the end of their journey but the beginning of a new chapter, one where they would guide others, protect the grove's legacy, and ensure its truths were never forgotten. The new epoch. As the seekers left the grove, they carried its light within them, their spirits forever entwined with its essence. The grove watched as they departed, its shadows stretching toward infinity. It knew that the cycle would continue, that new seekers would come, and that its story would live on through those brave enough to walk its paths. And so the grove entered a new epoch, its roots deepening, its branches reaching ever higher. It remained a place of beginnings and endings, of trials and revelations, of light and shadow. For as long as there were those who sought the truth, the grove would endure, a sentinel of the unknown, waiting to unveil its mysteries to the souls willing to face them. The grove's eternal keeper. The grove's story continued, not just as a legend passed through generations but as a living entity intertwined with those who had encountered its truths. The original group, now the keepers of its legacy, understood that their roles were part of something much larger. But the grove's influence, though subtle, had reached a critical point. It was preparing for a new transformation. The last invitation. It began with a dream shared among the keepers. Lila, Simon, Sarah, Elena, Andrew, Mark, and Beth all awoke one night with the same vision. They stood together in the grove, the trees aglow with a light brighter than any they had seen before. The whispers were harmonious, a song of completion and renewal. "You have fulfilled your purpose," the grove's voice said in the dream. "Now it is time to pass the mantle." The dream left them shaken but resolute. Each keeper understood that their connection to the grove had reached its zenith. The time had come for a new generation to take their place as stewards of the grove's truth. The pilgrimage of the chosen. The grove's call reverberated across the world, touching the hearts of those who were ready. Aaron, the young filmmaker, felt it most strongly. He had spent years researching the grove, and now he knew that it was time to answer its call. Others felt it too. The journalist who had met Lila, the woman Sarah had guided, and countless others who had followed the keeper's work. These chosen individuals began to converge at the grove's edge, their paths guided by dreams, intuition, and fragments of stories passed down. For many, it was the culmination of years of searching. For others, it was a sudden and inexplicable compulsion. Among them was a young boy, no older than 10, who carried a notebook filled with sketches of a place he had never visited. His parents, skeptical but supportive, brought him to the grove, where he immediately felt at home. "The grove called to me," the boy said simply, his eyes wide with wonder. "I think I'm supposed to help." The final gathering. The original keepers stood at the grove's altar, watching as the chosen gathered around them. The grove's whispers swirled through the air, carrying messages of encouragement and unity. The altar's golden light grew brighter, bathing the clearing in a glow that seemed to emanate from the earth itself. "You have answered the call," Lila said, her voice steady despite the emotions surging within her. "The grove has chosen you to carry its truths forward. This is not an ending but a new beginning." The chosen stepped forward, each placing a hand on the altar. The light intensified and the grove's voice filled the air once more. "The cycle renews. You are the guardians of balance, the keepers of truth. Carry my memory and let it guide you. Protect the light and share it with the world." As the chosen absorbed the grove's essence, the original keepers felt their connection begin to fade. It was not a loss but a release, a passing of responsibility to those who would carry on their work. They stepped back, their hearts heavy with gratitude and hope. A new keeper emerges. Among the chosen, the young boy stood out. As the light enveloped him, his eyes glowed with a wisdom far beyond his years. The grove's voice spoke directly to him, and the others instinctively stepped aside, recognizing his unique role. "You are my eternal keeper," the grove said to the boy. "Through you my essence will endure." The boy nodded, understanding without fear. He turned to the original keepers and smiled. "Thank you for protecting the grove," he said. "I'll take care of it now." Tears streamed down Lila's face as she knelt before the boy. "It's yours now," she said. "May you carry its light with honor." The final farewell. The original keepers left the grove for the last time, their hearts full of peace. They had fulfilled their purpose, and though they would no longer walk its paths, the grove's memory would remain with them forever. As they stepped beyond its boundary, the grove's light faded into the distance. They turned back one final time, watching as the chosen stood together, their hands joined in unity. The grove's whispers grew faint, replaced by the sounds of the living forest, vibrant and full of life. An eternal beacon. The grove entered a new phase, its essence carried by the eternal keeper and the chosen. It became a place of healing and revelation for those who sought it, a sanctuary where the line between truth and mystery blurred. The original keeper's work continued through the lives they had touched and the stories they had shared. For those who ventured into its depths, the grove offered a chance to confront their fears, uncover their truths, and emerge transformed. It stood as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring power of connection. And as the grove's story continued, it whispered one final message to all who would hear it. Seek the truth, embrace the light, and share the journey with others. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through the grove's mysteries and revelations. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more immersive tales of the unknown. Until next time, stay curious and keep seeking the truth.